वागर्थाविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्थप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ पार्वती परमेश्वरौ।
सर्वेभ्यः नमस्काराः। अत्रत्य संस्कृतसमितेः आश्रये एषः कार्यक्रमः प्रचलति। कुमारसम्भवस्य कालिदासकृतस्य काव्यस्य परिशीलनम् अस्माभिः क्रियमाणमस्ति। अत्र तृतीये सर्गे वयं भवामः। We were in Shloka 60, 360, third canto, Shloka 60 we were in. So, Tasmai Shashamsa Pranipatya Nandi Shushrusaya Shailasutaam Upetam Praveshayamasa cha Bharturenam Bhrukshepa Matranamata Pravesham was the shloka that we covered in the last session. So, Nandin, who is the Ganadhipa of Lord Shiva, he is the chief of the Pramatha Ganas. So, he bowed down to Shiva and then he informed Shiva of the arrival of Parvati for the sake of Shushrusha, for serving him. And Lord Shiva indicated that she may be allowed inside. This indication he did with a mere movement of his eyebrows, Bhrukshepa Matra Anumata Pravesham, and accordingly he ushered her in to the presence of Lord Shiva. Parvati is not unaccompanied. As we saw earlier, she has come with her two friends. Tasya Sakhibhyam Pranipata Purvam, we are in Shloka 61. Swahastaluna Shishiratyayasya Vyakiryata Triambaka Padamule Pushpochayaha Pallava Bhanga Bhinnaha. Being shy, Parvati did not bow down to Shiva first, but these two persons have conveyed their salutations to Lord Shiva, and therefore at the feet of Lord Shiva, Triambaka Pada Mule. Triambaka is Shiva. So the person with three eyes. So Trini Ambakani Yasya Saha. Triambaka Pada Mule, at the feet of Lord Shiva, they offered flowers of the spring season. Yakiryata means were offered. The verse is in passive voice. So Pushpochayaha means a heap of flowers. Uchchaya is a heap. Pushpochaya, a heap of flowers. Now that was offered Vyakiryata. And how was this heap of flowers? Pallava Bhanga Bhinnaha. So it was interspersed with sprouts. So a number of sprouts were also there mixed with the flowers, and such a heap of flowers, Pallava Bhanga Bhinnaha Pushpochayaha, was offered, Vyakiryata was strewn at the feet of Lord Shiva, Triambaka Pada Mule. And Pushpochayaha, the heap of flowers belonging to the spring season. Shishiratyayasya means belonging to the spring season. Shishira refers to the winter, and Atyaya is the termination or the passing. So after the passing of the season that comes after the closure of the winter season, Shishiratyayasya Pushpochayaha, which was also collected with their own hands. Swahasta Lunaha. Lunaha is plucked with their own hands. Swahasta. Actually, the word culled or plucked in English doesn't really convey the gentility of the word Luna in Sanskrit. So, to collect gently, so that is from the root Luhi. So, Swahasta Lunaha, which they had collected with their own hands. So, such a heap of flowers was offered by the two friends of Parvati, Tasya Sakhibhyam. Tasyaha refers to Parvatyaha, so Sakhibhyam, by the two friends of Parvati, Pranipata Purvam, so preceded by their salutation. So Pranipata is salutation. Now, among the 6 ritus or 6 seasons, Shishira constitutes the last and Vasanta constitutes the beginning. So, in order to show the cycle, it is common to refer to the last item first and the first item next. So, in Sanskrit we say Shishira Vasantau Punarayataha. So, this is the famous line in the Bhajagovinda Stuti of Shankaracharya. So, Shishira is the last of the seasons and Vasanta is the first of the seasons. So, we make a compound saying Shishira Vasanta, referring to the full circle or the full cycle. As we also say, for example, Meena and Mesha going together. So, Meena is the last and Mesha is the first. So, in counting sometimes, in order to refer to the full cycle, we say Meena first and Mesha next. So, similarly, Shishira is the last of the seasons. Now, this itself is the cold season. In Sanskrit, even the word Shita is very significant. So, Shishira is the season where it is very much cold, and the word Shita refers to something cool or cold, but it also refers to someone who is very lazy. And there is also another word Sheena, so it is derived from the same root and with the same affix, and with a slight change in the formation of the word and difference in meaning also. Sheena means dull and clod-pated, so that is the meaning of the word Sheena in Sanskrit. And now, after the termination of the Shita season or the Shishira season, everything comes alive. So, in the Vasanta season, so everything is full of bloom and full of life, and life is abuzz there then. So, it is in the spring season that flowers all begin to bloom, and therefore, in that season, so which is in fact an untimely onset of the spring season, as we had seen earlier. So, the two friends of Parvati have collected flowers belonging to the vernal season, and this they have collected with their own hands. It is said that an offering made to the Lord with flowers collected by one's own hands and from plants which are grown by one's own self are the best. So, what we may purchase in a shop is said to be quite inferior, and if something is stolen from another's garden, then it is said to be even worse. And therefore, flower plants grown in one's own land and tended by oneself, and the flowers collected by oneself rather than through a servant, are all factors that count in the intensity of bhakti and the efficaciousness of the offering. And therefore, the flowers that they had collected with their own hands, so they made an offering of those flowers. So, those flowers were scattered out of great devotion at the feet of Lord Shiva. Tryakiriyata Tryambaka Pada Mule Pushpochayaha Pallava Bhanga Bhinnaha. And then Umapi Nilalaka Madhya Shobhi Visramsayanti Navakarnikaram Chakara Karnachyuta Pallavena Murdhna Pranamam Vrishabhadhvajaya. This is verse 62. And Parvati too conveyed her salutation to Shiva. So, she bowed down with her head. Uma api, so even Parvati, Murdhna Pranamam Chakara. She performed the pranama with her head. So, Murdhna Pranamam Chakara. Now, there are two types of namaskaras. Of course, there are many types, and generally it is of two types, said to be of two types. While men bow down and salute a person, it is called Ashtanga Namaskara. Sometimes we use the word Sashtanga Namaskara, and for women what is prescribed is Panchanga Namaskara. And anyhow, the Murdhna Pranama, so bowing down one's head, is common to both. So, Parvati did this Murdha Pranama, or the salutation with bowing down of her head. So, to Lord Shiva, Vrishabhadhvaja refers to Lord Shiva. So because Shiva has a banner upon which the mark of the bull is there, Vrishabha is the bull, and Vrishabhadhwaja, Shiva is so called, so because of this reason. So Vrishabhadhwajaya Murdhna Pranamam Chakara. So Parvati bowed down to Shiva, so with her head. And even while she did that, it was with the letting fall of the Karnikara flower. So Nava Karnikaram, the fresh Karnikara flower, so which was let fall by her, Visramsayanti, so allowing it to fall or letting it fall. That Karnikara flower she had adorned her hair with Neelalaka Madhya Shobhi. It was resplendent, Shobhi, in the midst of Madhya. Neelalaka, her dark tresses. So her hair was dark, and in vivid contrast was this golden yellow Karnikara flower, fresh Karnikara flower. So while she bowed down, so it was, as it has been said, Murdhna Pranamanchakara, as she bowed down fully, the flower that she wore upon her head, the flowers fell at the feet of Shiva. So Visramsayanti Navakarnikaram. Probably she was aware that it was falling, but that did not disturb her. So she let it fall and she bowed down heartily to the Lord. Visramsayanti Navakarnikaram Chakara Karnachyuta Pallavena. And as she bowed down in full, the sprouts that she had worn as an adornment upon her ear, so even those flowers fell down. So there is a saying in Sanskrit, whenever one comes across these persons whom one should revere, one should convey his salutation. It says, Devam, Vipram, Gurum, Drishtva. So these three persons, the Lord, and then a Vipra and a Guru. So Gurum Drishtva, Nanamedyastu Sambhramaat. If one does not convey his salutation, Sakala Sutram Vajati Yavachandra Divakarau, he is going to suffer for a long time. So there is this saying in Sanskrit. So anyhow, Parvati had come to convey her regards to Lord Shiva, and therefore Murdhna Pranamam Vrishabhadhwajaya Sa Chakara. So Parvati has bowed down to Lord Shiva.
Umapi Neelalakamadhyashobhi Visramsayanti Navakarnikaram Neelalakamadhyashobhi Navakarnikaram Visramsayanti Chakara Karnachyuta Pallavena Murdhna Pranamam Vrishabhadhwajaya Umapi Karnachyuta Pallavena Murdhna Pranamam Chakara Vrishabhadhwajaya Pranamam Umachakara Murdhna Pranamam Vrishabhadhwajaya Murdhna Pranamam Chakara Vrishabhadhwajaya.
So while Parvati bowed down, the two kinds of flowers, the Karnikara flowers that adorned her tresses and the sprouts that were there upon her ears, they too fell down to Lord Shiva, towards the feet of Lord Shiva, and these also indicate the state of full offering of one's own self to the Lord. And in another sense, this can also kindle the feeling of love in the mind of Lord Shiva. So when somebody bows down, it's only proper that the person who has been saluted so utters his words of blessings and good wishes to the person bowing down. And so also here Lord Shiva utters these words of benediction to Parvati, and he said, Ananya bhajam patimapnuhi iti sa tathyameva abhihita bhavena nahishwara vyahritayah kadachit pushnanti loke viparitam artham. It says, Lord Shiva blessed her with these words. What are the words of his blessing? Ananya bhajam patimapnuhi iti. So these were his words. May you obtain a husband, patim apnuhi. Obviously, she was not married yet, and therefore, may you, for a young woman who has come of age, so that would be a very sweet blessing. Patim apnuhi. May you obtain a husband who would be entirely devoted to you. Ananya bhajam. So a person who would not go towards, whose mind does not go towards another woman. So may he be solely dedicated to you. Ananya bhajam patimapnahi iti sa tathyameva abhihita bhavena. So was she truly told. Tathyam in Sanskrit means truth. Here it is not used as a noun, but it is used adverbially. So truly is what is to be the meaning of tathyam. So it means both truth as a noun and truly as an adverb. So sa tathyameva abhihita, truly was she thus uttered. So was she spoken to. Abhihita means spoken, uttered to. So bhavena, by Lord Shiva. Bhava refers to Shiva. So Bhava uttered these words. Sa tathyameva abhihita, truly indeed was she told by Lord Shiva. And Kalidasa says in this context, Nahishwara vyahritayah kadachit pushnanti loke viparitam artham. The utterances of men of eminence, Ishwara vyahritayah. Ishwara, strictly speaking, refers to a ruler. So a person who has command over something is Ishwara. This is from root Ish, to rule. So it stands for Mahapurusha, and therefore Malinatha accordingly comments upon this as Mahapurushoktayah. So Ishwara Vyahriti is the utterance of a Mahapurusha. So Kadachit, na kadachit. Kadachit means sometimes, na kadachit, not at any time. Never do such utterances. Viparitam artham loke pushnanti. Would they support pushnanti a contrary sense? Viparitam artham in the world, loke. In Sanskrit, the word viparita is used in the sense of opposite. In some languages in our country, we use the word viparita, but in a different sense. So, such words which are spelled the same or written with the same spelling and written similarly, but yield different senses in different languages. So, they are called faux-ami, F-A-U-X-A-M-I. Ami means friend, faux means false. So, in Latin, faux-ami means false friends, which is to say that they look the same but mean different things. So, sometimes the same word is used in two different languages and they do not mean the same thing. There are many words so which are common to, for example, English and French or English and German. So, but though they are spelled the same, sometimes they are pronounced differently, and sometimes even if they are pronounced alike, they mean differently, and therefore such words are sometimes misleading, and therefore the word viparita, for example, in Kannada and in many other languages also, used in the sense of used as an intensifier. So here that is not the case. In Sanskrit, it is regularly used only in this sense of what you may say, ulta. So it is something opposite, contrary. Viparitam artham means a contrary meaning, a contradictory sense. So is never supported by the words of great people. Ishvara vyahritayah viparitam kadachit na pushtanti. So they do not convey a sense which goes contrary to the what they have uttered. Now, Ananya Bhajam Pati Mapnuhi. So these are the words of blessings by Lord Shiva. There should be nothing that should make for a person's happiness than having a companion who is utterly loyal to him or to her. So that is the first criterion of happiness in life. So it's only when we get a companion whom we can trust fully and wholly that we can be said to be really happy. So whatever may be our riches, so if we have a wife or a son or a daughter who do not trust us or in whom we cannot trust, there can be nothing sadder than that. And therefore the first and foremost criterion of happiness in life is getting to be with people in whom we can trust and who trust us. So with whom we can be very open, and that is the first thing that is required. This mutual loyalty is the foundation of real happiness, and therefore Ananya Bhajam Pati Mapnuhi, may you obtain a husband who would never set his eyes on another, is the idea that is being conveyed here. And therefore these are the words that, uttered by Shiva, and as the commentator points out, Uttaratra Tathaiva Sambhavat. In the later course of the story also the same is borne out to be true. Ultimately it is Shiva who marries Parvati, and his wholehearted dedication to her is very clear. In fact, Kalidasa himself says elsewhere, so intense was the love of Shiva towards Parvati and of Parvati towards Shiva that see, when two persons like each other, they would like to live as close as possible, and this is called Eka Geha Nyaya, that is living under the same roof, in the same home, same house. But when it is even more intense, it is Eka Deha Nyaya. So we sometimes say that it is a single soul living in two bodies, and in the case of Parvati and Shiva, it became even literally physically true as to be in the form of Ardhanarishwara, so where it is half male and half female. So Parvati and Shiva are even physically also that very close. And Kalidasa himself says, Premna Sharirardha Haram Harasya. So out of sheer love, so she took away how she came to possess half his body. So she came to be half his physique. So now, in a way, Shiva knew what was to happen. In another way, so he would not think of those things. So he has simply uttered. So as somebody who bows down, naturally such words of benediction are uttered, and in the natural course of things, Shiva has uttered those words of blessings to Parvati. And there is also a variant reading, Sa Tathyameva Abhita Bhavena. Instead of that, so Sa Bhavyameva Abhita Bhavena means, so Bhavya means what was destined to happen in future. So that will also convey more or less the same sense. And therefore, it's not just a formality. So sometimes we bless those who bow down to us, or the elders and superiors bow down, they bless us with a long life. So Dirgha Yushman Bhava or Saubhagyavati Bhava and so on. Many times it becomes a routine thing and more of a sort of a formality, and it is not very seriously intended. So it's only in some cases that people do bless in a very wholehearted fashion. So here what Lord Shiva said to Parvati was something bound to come true. Tathyameva abhihita bhavena. And Kalidasa says that the utterances of such great persons will never go in vain. They will not become futile. They are bound to happen. Loke kadachitapi. So viparitam artham na pushnanti. Now there is a parallel saying in Bhavabhutis Uttara Ramacharita. There he says, he contrasts between Laukika rishis, Laukika sadhus and rishis. He says, Rishinam punaradhyanam vashamarthonudhavati. Laukikanam hi sadhunam artham vaganuvartate. In the case of men of saintly qualities, so who are of this world, Laukikanam hi sadhunam artham vaganuvartate. They will be careful in their speech and they will see what are what things are there in nature, and accordingly their utterances come out. That is to say, they never violate nature, and therefore their words are in accordance with what things are. So, on the other hand, in the case of rishis, whatever they say will come out to be true, will turn out to be true. Rishinam puraradhyanam, in the case of the ancient rishis, vacham arthonudhavati. So, truth runs behind their utterances. That is to say, it catches up with their utterances. So powerful are their words and utterances that reality adjusts itself to their words. In the Upanishads, we have a reference to what is called Daivi Vak and Daivya Prana and Daiva Manas. In the case of Daivi Vak, it is said that a person endowed with Daivi Vak, whatever he speaks will turn out to be true. Sa vai Daivi Vak yaya yadyadeva vadati tad tad bhavati. Therefore, whatever escapes his lips will turn out to be the reality. There is also the concept of Vak Siddhi, both in astrology and in common parlance. Vak Siddhi is when whatever a person says is going to turn out to be true. And this happens, they say, especially in the case of astrologers, if he never utters a lie, by and by, his words become so powerful that whatever he utters will turn out to be the true thing. One may ask, if everything is decided, how can an astrologer's words change reality? But the point is that we have hundreds and thousands of karmans which are unfulfilled, and therefore when an astrologer speaks nice words to us, it can happen that if he has Vak Siddhi, so there will be such a selection of the karma phalas that the bad karmans which were about to bear fruit may get slightly postponed and may get attached to some other karman, and therefore the words that are uttered by the person will come out to be true. And even in the case of ordinary persons also, it is said that if a person is generally given to speaking just the truth and nothing but the truth, by and by his speech acquires a certain power that whatever he says sometimes can turn out to be true, and therefore speaking truth is considered to be something very, very important in our heritage. And there are only some exceptional situations where falsehood also becomes a duty, and therefore in those apadharmas or very special occasions where one is allowed to utter an untruth. So on all other occasions one should take care to speak the truth, and therefore in the case of Ishvara Vyahriti, in the case of the utterance of a lordly person such as Lord Shiva himself, so things will never go contrary to what they have uttered. In fact, if we look into the ancient literature, the word Vyahriti becomes very important. So we have, for example, three Vyahritis as Bhuhu, Bhuvaha and Swaha, or Sapta Vyahritis, so including the four more Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha and Satyam. These are all called Vyahritis. The word Vyahriti means simply utterance, and in the course of the description of creation, it is said Saha Bhuriti Vyaharat Bhuvam Asrijat. So this comes from the Aitareya Shruti. So the Lord said Bhuhu, and Bhuhu was created. So the earth was created. So it is perhaps in close imitation of this that we find the statement in the Bible also. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So by fiat we see that there is creation happening. that is, what were uttered as mere words will turn out to be reality. So this seems to be modeled after, see, what is said in the Shrutis. There are a number of statements in the Bible, so sentence patterns which look like copies from the Brahmana literature or Upanishadic literature. So you can see even the structure of the sentence, the pattern of the construction of the sentences, etc. So they are all, see, very similar to even the Sanskrit syntax. So there is such a close and deep resemblance among the two, and even in the ideas, and therefore the utterance of Lord Shiva is something that is bound to happen. So it is derived from the root pushu pushnanti, so pushu pushtau, so it will never have a contrary import. The benedictions of such extraordinary persons will never fail, and even if there are some impediments to what's going to happen, because they were uttered by great men, those impediments will be annulled and the utterance is going to become a reality.
अनन्यभाजं पतिमाप्नुहीति सा तथ्यमेव अभिहिता भवेन अनन्यभाजं पतिम् आप्नुहि अनन्यभाजं पतिमाप्नुहि सा तथ्यमेव अभिहिता भवेन न हि ईश्वरव्याहृतयः कदाचित् पुष्णन्ति लोके विपरीतमर्थम् ईश्वरव्याहृतयः कदाचित् लोके विपरीतमर्थम् न पुष्णन्ति अनन्यभाजं पतिमाप्नुहीति सा तथ्यमेव अभिहिता भवेन न हि ईश्वरव्याहृतयः कदाचित् पुष्णन्ति लोके विपरीतमर्थम् न पुष्णन्ति लोके विपरीतमर्थम्.
One may ask the question, is it not the case that the words of Shiva did not become true because Shiva is also shown as showing love towards Ganga? So, and we often get stories of the rivalry between Parvati and Ganga and so on. When I had put this question to my teacher, who later became the famous sannyasin as Rangapriya Swamiji, he said that ultimately speaking, Ganga and Gauri refer to the same tattva. And as regards the accusation sometimes made in some stories and in some Puranas that Parvati accuses Shiva of disloyalty to herself, as being sporting with other damsels and so on, the answer is to be sought in the spiritual fact that all the jivas are considered as the wives of the Supreme Lord. So the same is the case with Lord Krishna and with Shiva also. So there is what is called Dampatya Bhava between Jiva and Deva. So in Shankara Bhagavad-pada's Shivananda Lahari, there is also this comparison of the different kinds of bhakti. So where he says, Ankolam Nijabija Sandatirayas Kantopalam Suchika Sadhvi Naija Vibhum Lata Kshitiruham Sindhus Saridvallabham Prapnoti Yatha Tatha Pashupate Padaravindadvayam Cheto Vrittirupetya Tishtati Yada Sa Bhaktirittichyate, in which so Sadhvi Naija Vibhum is also a comparison that is given, and therefore the relationship between every Jiva and the Lord, whether we call him Vishnu or Krishna or Shiva or whatever, is ultimately the relationship between the wife and the husband, and therefore all Jivas are considered as the wives of the Lord, and therefore even in the Upanishads, for example in the Ramatapani Upanishad, it is said that of course in the Ramayana also it is said that when Rama came to the forest, Rama looked so charming that the sages could not pull out their eyes from Lord Rama. So he was physically charming. In fact, it is said of Rama that he was attractive even to men. Pumsam mohana rupaya punyashlokaya mangalam. So when we were extremely drawn towards a person, our very expression sometimes can become different. In Kalidasa's play, so Urvashi is going to meet Pururavas, so in the play Vikramarushiyam, and Urvashi is now well dressed so as to meet her lover, and she just asks her friend, am I properly dressed to go and meet him? And the friend does not reply in so many words saying, oh, you are looking really beautiful, you will really impress him, or he will admire your form or beauty and so on. On the other hand, she will just say, oh, if only I was Pururavas. So, yadyaham Pururava bhaveyam. So, it only shows the intensity of the attractiveness of the person. So, here in the case of Lord Rama, it is said he was Pumsam Mohana Rupaya. So, even men would not be able to pull their eyes off from the physique of the person, so charming a personality that he had. And therefore, the rishis in the Ramayana, so they were all Rishiyaha Vismitakaraha, it says, so they were so full of wonderment. And in the Ramatapani Upanishad it is said, the rishis request Rama, so that they are so physically drawn towards him that they want to embrace him. So, and then he says, it is said that in your next birth you will be born as the Gopikas. So, this is why in Krishna Avatara we have so many Gopikas so who yearn for the physical company of the Lord, and therefore there is no question of disloyalty, and this should not be construed again as the Lord himself setting a bad example for the devotees. On the other hand, the Tatvik approach should be properly taken. So anyhow, he has blessed her, Ananya bhajam patim apnuhi, may you obtain a husband who is ever loyal to you, so whose mind is not turned towards any other person. Now, this was just the moment that Manmatha was waiting for. Kamastu banavasaram pratikshya. So Kamaha is Manmatha. He was only waiting. Pratikshya means was waiting for that. So waiting for Bana Avasaram. Even the word Avasara is another false friend that I introduced just now, or foe, I mean. So Avasara is in Sanskrit means a right moment, an opportune moment. So whereas in other languages, for example in Kannada it only means hurry, but that is not the sense in Sanskrit at all. And therefore, Banavasara means the right moment to shoot the arrow. So, he had lost all his courage and confidence regarding attacking Shiva. So, but now was presenting before him, so a moment where Shiva and Parvati are very close, and Shiva has conveyed her high and deep regards to Lord Shiva, and she has bowed down to him, and even as she has bowed down, the Karnikara flowers from her dark tresses and the fresh sprouts from her ears have fallen at his feet, and Shiva knows how dedicated Parvati is, and he has heartily blessed her, and while blessing a person, it is also very natural to take a look at the person. So it's a brief glimpse that Shiva would have had at Parvati, and Manmatha thinks that this is the opportune moment for him to shoot his arrow. And the stupidity of this small fry trying to attack a big giant, so is beautifully described by Kalidasa as by means of a comparison as a patanga or a moth eager to enter into fire. Patangavatu, like a moth. Vivikshuhu means eager to enter. So desirous of entering into Vanhi Mukham, the mouth of fire or the flame. So Patangavad Vanhi Mukham Vivikshuhu. The moth entering the fire is destined to get burnt. So it is drawn towards the light, but it does not notice the heat, and therefore mere brightness is not sufficient ground, and therefore one must be careful in one's actions. So it's not by what merely attracts one that one should be guided, but by the consequences of the action that one should take his steps. And therefore Uma Samaksham Harabadha Lakshyah Sharasana Jyam Muhurama Marsha. Now Bana was itching, his hands were itching to shoot an arrow against Lord Shiva, and therefore he again and again touched the bowstring. Sharasana means the bow, and Sharasana Jya is the bowstring. So Jya is the string. So Sharasana Jyam, the string of the bow, Muhu Amamarsha. Again and again he touched. So he frequently felt his hands over the Maurvi or the bowstring because the right moment was Uma Samaksham, is the right in front of Parvati. So in the presence of Parvati, the moment Parvati leaves, so after all she had come to convey her salutation, and soon after her salutation she would depart. And while she has not yet departed, while she is still there in his presence, that is the right moment, and therefore Harabadha Lakshyah. So the target in his mind is very clear, namely Shiva, and therefore Sharasana Jya Muhur Amamarsha. So he felt his hands over the bowstring and thought that this is only a right moment, this is the right moment to fixing the arrow and shooting him. So shooting the arrow at Lord Shiva. And then Parvati now makes her offering. So she is now bowing down. Athopaninye Girishaya Gauri Tapasvine Tamrarucha Karena Vishoshitam Bhanumato Mayukhair Mandakini Pushkara Bijamalam. She has brought a gift for Lord Shiva. So she has done her Murdha Pranama. So the Murdhana Pranamam Chakara. After that, she is now making over a gift to Lord Shiva. So Atha Upaninye means made an offering to Lord Shiva, Girishaya. So Gauri Girishaya Upaninye. So Gauri made the offering to Girisha means Shiva. Now Shiva is a tapasvine, and therefore the offering that should be made should be something that is commensurate with the status of Shiva as a tapasvin, and therefore Tapasvine Tamra Rucha Karena, what she made as the offering is given in the second half of the verse. So while she offered what is very clearly visible, so especially to Manmatha, is her hand Karena, so which is Tamra Rucha, which is red in hue. Tamra stands for copper, and therefore her hand has the hue of copper, so it is so red. So she can easily be imagined as a Kashmiri girl, so who is very white in color, and so in fact the word Gauri stands for the whiteness. Gaura is white, and Gauri is one who is white, as against another aspect of herself which is Kali. So in Sanskrit Kala means dark. So as Kali she is very dark in color and as Gauri she is very white in color. Why does a why does the same person now appear as Gauri and now appear as Kali? So it's all because of the functions that they have to perform, and for the sake of which they take up the different gunas. If it is a Sattvika Rupa, it is white in color. So if it is a Tamasa Rupa, it is dark in color, and if it is Rajasa, it will be red in color. And therefore the creative principle is described as having these different colors. So in the Upanishads, Shvetashvatara, for example, we have the statement Ajam Ekam Lohita Shukla Krishnam. So Lohita is red, Shukla is white, and Krishna is dark. So and accordingly Parvati is described as being white or being red or being dark. So here she is specifically described as Gauri, and there is also a saying in the Puranas which says why she was called Gauri. Yogagni Dagdha Dehasa Punarjata Himalaye Shankhendu Kunda Dhavala Sa Gauri ititu Sa Smrita. Tato Gauri iti Sa Smrita. So she had burnt her body in the Yogagni. So as the daughter of Daksha, she was Dakshayani, and she was utterly dissatisfied with a life where she was so very embarrassed and her husband was so very embarrassed and ill-treated and so on, and therefore she was born again as the daughter of Himavan, Punarjata Himalaye, with the firm resolve that she would have no occasion for such embarrassments, and therefore she is now born so white in color as comparable to Shankha and Indu and Kunda. So Shankha is the conch, and then Indu is the moon, and Kunda is the jasmine flower. She was born as white as these, and therefore Tato Gauri iti Sasmarta, therefore she has been called Gauri here. Athopananye Girishaya Gauri. So she is so fair and her hand is so red. So certainly a healthy person has a healthy palm. So Tamra Rucha Karena. So in fact, there is a saying in Sanskrit, in an Ayurvedic saying, Saptaraktaha Sukhi Bhavet. A person has 7 parts of the body which are very red in color. So that shows he is in a way a bloody fellow. That is, there is a good proportion of blood in his body, and therefore there is a mark of a healthy life. So anyhow, Parvati's hands were red like copper, Tamrarucha Karena. So with her shining red hand. So she has made this offering of what? As I said, to an ascetic, this is what is to be offered. So it is a mala, it's a garland made of the lotus seeds, Pushkara Bija. So, and in order to show that, see, Pushkara, the lotus itself is very sacred, and in order to show that the lotuses here are even more sacred, the bijas are the ones that are from the lotuses that are grown in the Mandakini river. Mandakini Vyad Ganga, it is said. So the celestial Ganges is called Mandakini. The river Ganga has 3 stages in which she gets 3 different names, and the first stage where it is as though she is descending right from the heavens. So it is Vyad Ganga or Akasha Ganga. It is called Mandakini because she flows very gently there. Mandam Akati. So Mandakini Pushkara Bija Malam, and so those bijas are further dried up in the sun. So Vishoshita means dried up. Bhanumato Mayukhaihi, with the rays of the sun. So such flower seeds, lotus seeds, so they are very useful for, they are typically used for the Japamala. So the Japamala is often made either of Rudrakshas, so or of the Pushkara Bijas, and therefore Parvati made the offering of the garland of the seeds made out of the lotuses that are grown in the celestial Ganges. In the Ramayana, we see the sages who were very happy with the singing of Lava and Kusha. So the Lava and Kusha sang the portions of Ramayana, and the sages were so happy, and they wanted to give some gift to the young boys, and it is said that some rishis offered the Kaupina as the gift. So, because that was what was appropriate for the votus, and that's what they had, and therefore dana is always made in accordance with what one possesses and what the other fellow deserves or needs. So they made, Parvati now made the offering of the Pushkar Bijamala to Lord Shiva. So with the singing of this verse, we close this session today.
अथोपनिन्ये गिरिशाय गौरी तपस्विने ताम्ररुचाकरेण विशोषितां भानुमतो मयूखैः मन्दाकिनी पुष्करबीजमालाम् अथ गिरिशाय तपस्विने गौरी ताम्ररुचाकरेण भानुमतो मयूखैः विशोषितां मन्दाकिनी पुष्करबीजमालाम् उपनिन्ये बीजमालां पुष्करबीजमालामुपनिन्ये मन्दाकिनी पुष्करबीजमालां गौरी उपनिन्ये गिरिशाय मन्दाकिनी पुष्करबीजमाला।
In the coming session, we see how Manmatha gets reduced to ashes. We could cover only 5 shlokas today. So in the next session, we will try to cover a little more.